Yo, what is going on today, guys? We are back here for another video. So it is day 5 of the new set, and there has been a lot of meta changes in the last 2 days. So in this video, I'm going to be covering basically why I think this season is actually kind of hard to climb in currently, and I will also be showcasing the best decks that you guys can use to climb and hopefully achieve Master Ball yourself, or maybe go for that top 1000, top 5000, even something like Great Ball, depending on what your goals are. So first off, before we begin, I just want to say thank you guys for 900. I really do appreciate all the love and support I do get every time I do upload or stream. So once again, thank you guys for the 900. And yeah, so first off, let's just talk about why is the season actually pretty hard to climb in for me, like personally. So just from my experience, dude, watching people and, playing myself, I had a lot of success like the first 2 days of ranked where like everything was like, going pretty smoothly. And that's because there's really only 2 decks. It was Buzzwole and Rampardos Sivally. And that was it. But after those 2 days, dude, is when the meta didn't get solved, because obviously, nothing is solved. We still have like 20 days left of ranked, so a lot more like meta changes can happen. But essentially, a lot more decks just popped up, dude, to basically counter these decks. And like, for example, like Oricorio didn't exist. Oricorio is now a thing you do have to worry about. And I do have like Limitless pulled up just to look at some stats. Like, I don't think the tournament stats, dude, actually translate to the same thing as the ranked, but it's just something to look at while I'm talking about this. So first off, I think this season is probably the most going second season I've ever seen in my life for Pokemon Pocket. Like, there's a lot of matches I literally will just simply lose because I faced against the Sivally Rampardos and they went second and I went first. That is just, like, that deck is just so strong going second that sometimes like you literally just lose on the coin flip at the round start. Even same thing for Buzzwole, bro. I've lost so many Buzzwole mirror matches just because they were able to go second and start, sniping stuff earlier. Obviously, if you do go first, you don't place your Buzzwole in the active spot because you don't want to get sniped by the Pheromosa. But sometimes that can get red carded away, or sometimes, they just have the energy advantage, bro. So at the end of the day, they will just win. Like, obviously, like the only deck that doesn't really care about going second is Darkrai or like Giratina decks, but like because you can start setting up on Giratina. But at the same time, dude, if you're playing Darkrai Giratina and that Sivally Rampardos goes second and they have the god hand, dude, they get a Rampardos, they have 2 Sivallies, you're probably still going to lose that game. Like, this meta is just like, simply, I really do feel like it's just kind of whoever goes second kind of wins. And there's so many times, dude, I played Sivally Rampardos, I played it and I went like second like 10 games in a row, dude. I went on a huge win streak. After that, I started going first and I just kept losing in the mirror match, dude. It's like, it's literally that simple sometimes. So basically, we have the stats. So the top 2 decks right now, bro, are Sivally and Rampardos, and then Buzzwole. And then, we have other stuff like Charizard, Darkrai Giratina. So I think the second part of why ranked is really hard. I feel like almost every deck kind of has like, not like a insta loss matchup, but a very hard matchup where like you mostly lose, especially if you do go first sometimes. So for Sivally Rampardos, what deck actually beats Sivally Rampardos? One, so it's actually going to be the Solgaleo and Shiinotic deck down here. This deck is a hard counter. Like I said, not saying it's impossible to win, but it's just definitely the worst matchup. So like Rampardos Sivally, dude, was getting hard countered by Solgaleo Shiinotic, and because Solgaleo popped up, we had Oricorio come back because, dude, I mean, if you see Oricorio, bro, just concede. Solgaleo was not beating that deck. And then because Oricorio was existent, Sivally Rampardos was starting to do good again. And then because Sivally Rampardos came back and Solgaleo was losing to Oricorio, actually Lucario Rampardos started to show back up in a ranked. And then we also have stuff like Buzzwole that's like pretty decent. I wouldn't say it beats Rampardos Sivally, and I wouldn't say Sivally Rampardos beats it. I think it's like an even matchup. But then we have Buzzwole, bruh, which loses the Charizard. You definitely can beat the Charizard, but low-key if they have a Lillibear, you might be cooked. Yeah, so like Buzzwole loses the Charizard loses the Oricorio. So I feel like we kind of had like this like triangle effect, dude, where like you play a deck, and if you face, like, if you run into this matchup, and then even if you go, like, let's say you run into the matchup and then you go first, you're probably gonna lose like instantly, bro. Yeah, that's just for my personal experience. Like, I do think, yeah, like, you go first, bro, in a bad matchup, you can still win those games, especially if your opponent does brick. You have like a Mars or red card to brick them. I mean, sometimes they just brick you, bro. Like, sometimes they red card you, bro, and then you brick in a bad matchup and you went first and it's just over, bro. It's just GG's. So that's just like the second thing I wanted to talk about real quick. But yeah, I just had the stats pulled up, but like I said, I don't think this like correlates to rank too much. Obviously, you can't see like Sivally Rampardos is dominating. Buzzwole's like right behind it. Even stuff like Solgaleo Shiinotic has like a pretty good win rate as well, because it was really only played in like 1 or 2 major tournaments. and doesn't have the most representation. And then you have like your other decks like Thanos. You have like the Thanos, Giratina, Darkrai, Arceus decks. You just have Darkrai Giratina, which actually won the biggest tournament. And I guess we can just go look at that real quick before we do get into the deck list. So here we have the biggest tournament of the week, and it had like 990 players, maybe just was like 900 something. But essentially Darkrai Giratina won, and we'll get into the deck list later. But then we just have a bunch of Buzzwoles, bro. We have Solgaleo Shiinotic. We have Sivally Rampardos, which kind of, it had the most representation going in, and definitely, you can still see it, but like towards like the top, like the top 20s, a lot didn't make it through. We actually have surprising like a Rampardos Garchomp, which I'm gonna be honest, bro, I have not seen a lot of these in ranked personally, but in tournament play, bro, it can be something that does work, dude. Then actually a Guzzlord as well made it to 14, which Guzzlord is like a Pokemon I have seen getting like an increased usage rate. Like I actually ran into like a surprising amount of Guzzlord, bro, in like the top 1,000 yesterday. So definitely might be a deck that people like underrated and might be rising up in popularity. But essentially the takeaway you can see from these results are like Darkrai Giratina, bro. Buzzwole seems to be the most popular deck. Guzzlord stuff, like you had like some surprising like decks that there's always like some surprising breakthrough decks like Garchomp, for example, and Guzzlord. Then you just have Sivally Rampardos, bro, Charizards, the Shiinotics, Solgaleos, and stuff like that. So nothing like crazy, bro. I think this is like kind of what I expected to see. Plus, no Oricorios, because Oricorio, like no one really expected the Shiinotic Solgaleo to like be like have like this breakout performance in this tournament. So I'm gonna say it now. Next tournament there is going to be a bunch of Oricorios probably. Will it win or have the most representation? Probably not, but just more than definitely more than like what we saw. Because we go to the metagame, so we can see Sivally Rampardos, the most played deck, Buzzwole, Giratina, Darkrai, and then Solgaleo Shiinotic, and then all the way down here, bro, is when we finally see Oricorio at 8 players for this Magnezone variant. Obviously, there's some other variants like the Sivally's Aurora deck. Then we have like the Tapu Koko versions. So basically, dude, there's like almost no Oricorio decks really represented. For the most part, like in this 900% tournament. Anyways, just a little bit of data, bro. Like I said, bro, I don't think the tournament results, bro, like were too crazy, and I don't really think they line up, like I said, of ranked. So anyways, let's just go to the deck list and let's just like showcase the decks from my personal experience playing in the top 1,000 that I've seen the most in Master Ball. And what I mean by like the tournament results like not really translating to ranked, basically because of Saturday, people saw like what decks were doing good in the tournament, and there's like a lot of meta changes in ranked, which obviously you can't change your deck mid-tournament. So like the Oricorio decks, for example, like I said, were not represented, and just some other decks too that I've been seeing a lot more common in ranked that weren't really common in that tournament. Obviously, the top decks like Buzzwole and Darkrai Giratina and stuff like Sivally Rampardos are relevant and like does translate to ranked. But like I said, there's just basically some decks that have not made it to ranked. Anyways, we actually have the first place winner with the Darkrai Giratina deck. So dude, this is literally just an average Giratina Darkrai deck. We literally just have Darkrai Giratina. We have the 2 Pokemon Center ladies for the healing. This is mainly for Pheromosa, because it's kind of very obnoxious when Pheromosa just snipes your stuff, be able to use the Cyruses and then like get stuff like ready for a one-shot from Buzzwole. Then like Mars, Leaf Bra, Guzma Red. The only like kind of interesting thing is that they have a Mars and 2 red cards, so they really don't want their opponent to be able to set up on anything. And we just have the 1 Rocky and then the 1 Giant Cape. Most like Darkrai Giratina decks last season were playing 2 Rocky helmets and 1 red card. This person decided to choose 2 reds because it kind of makes sense to use Sivally Rampardos. If they can't find the evolution pieces, either the Skull Fossils or the Rampardos, and they just have like maybe like 1 or 2 Sivallies, the deck's not that scary, but the scariest thing is when they have the Sivallies and the Rampardoses. Plus, Buzzwole really needs the support card, Luzamine sometimes. So like if you can get that card out of their hands, and there's there's just a lot of setup decks such as like Arceus and stuff like Tears or KD decks, it makes a lot of sense why we're playing 2 red cards, because they don't want their opponent to be able to play the game, and they actually want to be able to see it early on to actually disrupt the opponent instead of drawing it like late game and then not really doing anything. Yeah, so I mean, Darkrai Giratina, I've seen it a lot in ranked personally. It's just back. It's not the best deck, dude, but it's just like I don't think there is a best deck this season. That's also another thing about the rank why it's so hard. Every other season kind of had like that best deck to play, but this season I don't really think there is a best deck. Obviously there are strong decks like Sivally Rampardos and Buzzwole, but like I said, those decks still have losing matchups. Going first also on Sivally can be bad. But yeah, just a classic Darkrai Giratina deck, and yeah, it's nothing too interesting. So let's move on to the next deck. So next up, we are going to be looking at the second place person who is playing Buzzwole. So they have an interesting version where they're not playing Cortana. So what they have is they have the 2 Buzzwoles, 2 Salicyllas, and the 2 Pheromosas. This is like pretty standard in Buzzwole decks. Then they were playing 2 Cyruses, 2 Ericas, 2 Leaf Capes, only 1 Luzamine, so they can have the room to play 2 hand disruptions with the red card and the Mars. Yeah, but besides that, dude, it's pretty standard. You know, you have Pheromosa, hopefully in the active spot, sniping stuff. You have the 2 Cyruses to be able to disrupt your opponent or just bring something in that they are setting up on the back. KO with Buzzwole when you are fully set up. And then you just have the Celesteela Bird to the swapping out the most broken card in the game for Ultra Beast, obviously. And yeah, just essentially just a Buzzwole deck that's pretty standard, but they're just playing 2 hand disruptions instead of 2 Luzamines. And basically same thing as Darkrai Giratina. You don't want your opponent to be able to play the game this season, dude, because if they play the game, a lot of these decks are very volatile. So we actually have another Buzzwole deck we can look at, because this is actually the person who got 4th place, and it was a little bit different. So this version is actually playing 2 Cortanas, which I found very interesting, because I personally have been playing the 2 Pheromosa 1 Cortana build, while this person is doing the opposite. And I think this is also very strong. And also, as I was saying, this deck's actually playing 2 Luzamine. So we have the 2 Cortanas, which is, you know, very aggressive and can help in the Oricorio matchup, especially on a ranked. I really do think a Cortana is kind of necessary, because otherwise, kind of a little bit of bad matchup, because Pheromosa only does 20 damage. If they have a Shaman Bro, you're only tickling them. So the Cortana is nice to be able to 2-tap a Oricorio. Then, like I said, they have 2 Luzamines. They chose to play a red, which is very interesting. This red, you know, there's a lot of things this red can do. One, can help in the Charizard matchup actually to get that last 20 points you might need if they like don't heal up with Lily. Or, you know, in the mirror matches, you actually can one-shot a Buzzwole because, you know, they have the Guzma. Then just 1 Cyrus, only 1 Erica, and just a red card, and then the 2 Leaf Cape. So this person basically cut out the healing to be able to play the red. And then obviously, you know, the red would let you like one-shot stuff like a Darkrai Giratina, even if they have, or like not a Darkrai, if they have a giant cape on them. So it's a cool, interesting version of the Buzzwole variant that's like different than the 2nd place one. So next up, we have probably the most represented and probably the strongest deck in the game if you do go 2nd, which is going to be Sivally and Rampardos. So Sivally doing 100 damage for 2 energy, bro, is literally just so insanely broken. Not only that, but you have a card that also thins and searches the evolution piece, bro. This deck is just crazy, and it's probably the deck I face the most online. And so yeah, just 2/2 for the Sivally package, just a 2/1/2 with the Rampardos package. Obviously, you know, kind of the Skull Fossil as a Pokemon. I can just literally move it closer. Then dude, it's just standard. This is like almost what everybody plays. 2 Professor Research, 2 Gladions, 1 Giovanni for the mirror match to be able to one-shot a fellow Sivally, Sabrina, Cyrus, Iono, 2 rare candies, and the 1 Pokeball. Some builds I have seen taking out the 1 Pokeball. I personally like the Pokeball for the consistency. Plus, if I see a Pokeball and Gladion, I'm actually guaranteed to get Sivally if I do want Sivally, because, you know, you also can get type null from Gladion, so sometimes you can lose because of that, which I really like the Pokeball for. But I've seen some builds like take out the Pokeball, add like a Mars or something. You know, just like a little FYI. Next up, we had the deck that had like kind of like the breakout performance. So it's going to be Solgaleo and Shiinotic. Basically, people dropped Skarmory, Bird, and basically their new best friend is Shiinotic. And if you don't know, we have this new Shiinotic with the ability, once during your turn, you may put a random Pokemon from your deck into your hand. So basically, why would you have a Skarmory and a Solgaleo when you could just have 2 big lions? So essentially, that's what it is, where you basically trying to set up 2 Solgaleos, and this deck hard loses the Oricorio, but it's good against everything else. Plus, you know, Solgaleo going 2nd is kind of broken. Like the worst matchups are probably like Oricorio, because that's just unwinnable. And then Darkrai Giratina can be a little bit rough, you know, depending on if you go 1st or 2nd. The cool thing about the cool thing about this guy is that it is a grass type actually and colorless. So in case you are playing like Darkrai and you go 2nd and you have this guy in the X spot, you can ping that Darkrai for 30 damage, allowing your Solgaleo to actually knock it out when it comes in, as long as, you know, they don't heal it up. But this Solgaleo deck was like the one in like the top 16, top 10. I forget exactly what they were in the tournament, but anyways, you know, you have the 2/1/2 line, basically. Because Shiinotic can find the Cosmoan. If you can't find the rare candies, at least you can find the Cosmoan to evolve. You have a 2/1/2 line for a Solgaleo, then you have a 2/2 for the Shiinotics. Then, you know, just like Professor Research, Lily, Red, Cyrus, Mars, Sabrina, pretty average, you know, in decks. That like kind of like Sabrina combo with the hand disruption. And then you have like the 2 tech cards with the Lily and the Red, 2 rare candies, and then 2 Pokeballs. Yeah, so it's just one of those strong decks that just kind of like popped up because of Sivally Rampardos. And I still face it a lot in ranked actually, but I think there was like yesterday, dude. Even if Oricorio rising up, I think I fought it like this deck like 5 times in a row. And it just wasn't fun. Was not fun. Let's just say that, guys. This deck can be super volatile, especially if they do go second. Next up, we just have classic dude Stoke Charizard and Incineroar. Nothing is really different besides like they're playing 2-hand disruptions now. Instead of an Iono, this build is actually playing Pokecom. This one also did pretty good in the Arceus tournament. It was like the highest placing one. And yeah, they're just playing 2-hand disruptions, dude, essentially. I think the reason for no Iono, and I said this also in my Decidueye video, or in like the last video I talked about Decidueye, Iono is good, but it gives your Sivally Rampardos players a chance to get the God Hand with a Rampardos, like Skull Fossil. So I think a lot of builds are taking Iono now in favor for Pokemon because they don't want to give that like certain matchup like better cards, you know, if that makes sense. Then we just have the red. The red helps you one-shot Solgaleo, which is why that's probably there. Obviously, you know, in other matchups like Darkrai, if they have a giant cape or stuff like that, then you know 2 Lily is pretty standard. Once again, does hard lose to Oricorio, but against everything else, where it's like pretty good in the meta. And definitely can struggle against Sivally Rampardos if Rampardos does go second. But, you know, if they don't get that Rampardos actually, and you have the Lilies route, you can kind of cook them as well. So next up, we have this Thanos deck is what people were calling it. And this is a deck I was using a lot yesterday. I wouldn't say I had success, but I went even and I didn't lose or gain any points. Well, I kind of lost points playing other decks, but I kind of gained all my points back because of this deck, because I actually dropped out of Master Ball yesterday because I went on a really bad lose streak because Sivally Rampardos going second. For my opponents. But essentially this deck has Arceus, Giratina, Darkrai, and then the Crobat. And I mean, dude, if you can get Arceus set up and then have Crobat and Darkrai chip, you can do 180 damage in 1 turn, and that's just one shot most things. You have the Dawns in case you go second and have a Giratina Arceus, you can attack by turn 2. You have the Mars Hand Disruption, 2 Pokeballs Pokemon for the Crobat, or in case you did find the Darkrai like a Giratina or something on turn 1. Giant Cape, you know, to let you live those hits you should be living. I feel like this deck, like, you know, I don't think every matchup is like a win. I feel like this deck is probably like the most even deck in the game. I feel like when I play this deck, like I think the worst matchup is probably Buzzwole. That's only because they have Pheromosa, which is like, yes, everything weak in the back, so like Buzzwole will just like knock them out of 1 hit. But besides that, I think this deck kind of does like pretty decent in like every other deck in the meta. Obviously, you know, can be bricky sometimes, and there have been definitely situations where like I am playing 2, 4, 7 basics and I literally go 3 turns without finding a single basic besides the one I start with, bro. Just because sometimes, you know, the game does rig your hands. I mean, obviously, you know, it doesn't, but like sometimes the bad luck is just so bad. But yeah, this deck is just decent, bro. You have like Giratina to be able to attack too, or Arceus, Darkrai, bro. You just have so many options with this deck, which I really love. And it's also just very fun to play. It's just very fun to play, satisfying, bro. It's like actually like a deck you have to like think about. Like the energy matters where you put that energy. Where like Sivally Rampardos, bro, you go second, energy, attack, energy, evolve Sivally, support card, attack. Oh, Skull Fossil place down, support card, attack. Oh, Rare Candy, Rampardos. My Sivally's knocked out, Rampardos attack, win the game. So like this deck you actually have to like think, bro, which is something that a lot of the meta decks, bro, don't really have. So next up we have like the Tapu Koko or Oricorio decks that are kind of like risen up because of the Solgaleos and the Charizards. And this is one example that I took from a high placing in like a big tournament. So I'm gonna be real, I am not too familiar with the Tapu Koko decks. I understand what they do, like, you know, Tapu Koko, you attack and you do 90. You have the Zorora, you know, going first. You can attack also for 50 on your second turn, you know, or like just get energy. So I know what the Pokemon do. I don't know like the most optimal support ratio, but this is obviously the support ratio they are using. You know, just Hand Disruption, the Dawn, the Repel, Geo, and like Cyrus and stuff. So I've seen some builds run the Pikachu EX. I've seen some builds take out the Pikachu EX and run 2 of these and just run this 6-man lineup. So I don't want to give that FY out. But so yeah, this is like one of the most common forms of Oricorio, but like actually this return, like Greninja Oricorio is actually making a big return. So I've seen a big resurgence in actually Oricorio Greninja as well. I actually faced them out like against a decent amount last night. So I know this is only 19 cards. From the ones I faced, I haven't seen Giratina played in this anymore. I think that's mainly because a Buzzwole can't snipe the Giratina and bring it in for a free 2-point KO. But I don't know what really the support cards they are playing. I mean, I'm assuming the 20th card would either be a red card or a Mars, and I don't even know if they're playing Irida. They might just play Pokemon Center related, to be honest. So it might look something like this instead. And then for the last card, bro, it could also just be 2 red cards and like a Mars. I have no clue. I'm just gonna keep it real. Some of them are not even playing Frogadier. I just wanted to bring it up because I am seeing it represented, but I am not like, I have not seen the list on Twitter, bro. I have not, I don't personally play the deck, so I'm just going to let you guys know that, but I do want to just showcase it. Basically, this deck is making a resurgence, at least in like top 100 ranked. So there's actually another Oricorio variant, bro, and it's actually Sivally Zorora and Oricorio. So only two Pokeballs, by the way. So this is something I've also seen, basically to be able to counter those as a way to like for like this deck to beat a Solgaleo, and obviously pure electric because you know these guys are colorless. And yeah, it's just basically the same thing. You have the Dawn, dude. So if you do go first, you actually can evolve into Sivally and, you know, Dawn off Zorora into Sivally and attack like that, which is like a cool version, like a cool way to make this deck a little bit going first. So I know last time we talked about the Your Ninja variant, that deck is like falling off, bro. That was like a day, that was like, dude, I uploaded that video. That was like a day one deck. That deck just disappeared, bro. I'm sorry, like that just kind of sucks, bro. Like bad timing, I guess, on my part, but that deck is just gone. So we also have actually another Sivally variant, bro. So we have actually a Charizard Sivally variant. And basically, it's just a Charizard deck that has Type Null and Sivally, like a 1/1 copy. And you basically only use this to be able to beat Oricorio. So this list is also one that I took off of a high placing in a tournament off like Limitless. So is this the most represented in ranked? No, but I actually have ran into this a little bit. So I just wanted to give you guys that FYI that you might run into this deck. Like I said, bro, it's just basically a Charizard deck with a way to actually beat Oricorio potentially. So that's all it is. So next up we have actually Guzzlord. So this Guzzlord deck did very good at the Earthsea Days tournament, again like top 16, which was surprising because a lot of people said Guzzlord wasn't going to be that good. Low key though, bro, once I read this attack, I knew this card was going to come up eventually, bro. I faced a lot of Guzzlord starting yesterday, so I don't know if it's just going to be like a 1 or 2 day thing, but in case Guzzlord does make its way into the meta. So Guzzlord, bro, you know, very obnoxious because you know you can delete the energy, very good into the Darkrai Giratina because of that factor. You have the poison barb, so like if you know opponent attacks into you, they're gonna take the 20 damage every single turn because of this jellyfish that does extra poison damage. Then so let's just be able to switch things around because Guzzlord is a 4 retreat cost and you don't want to waste the energy. You lose a meeting, so you know if you attack with the jellyfish, you get the energy on Guzzlord or go from one Guzzlord to a second Guzzlord. Pokemon Center Lady, Mars Red, you know, there's just the basic stuff. And there's this other variant that I've actually been seeing also a lot. I think I've actually seen this version more with the Boypole and the Nagandel, which you know, just an offensive attacker that poisons. So you can do actually a lot of damage before you go in the Guzzlord. You can usually go in like 1 or 2 of these. You have this on the bench, and then you have just a Guzzlord for like the finisher. And yeah, just, you know, Cyrus Mars, you know, the classic stuff, dude, because obviously you're playing 4 more slots in this deck, so you can play less support cards, so you have to cut out some stuff. I knew I forgot something, bro. It was Lucario Rampardos. So this deck has basically came back, and it's just strong, man. Lucario Rampardos can let you one-shot Buzzwole. You know, if they don't have a leaf cape and stuff like that. Marshadow, just like, you know, this deck is basically meant to beat Sivally Rampardos. But you know, the deck is also very strong, you know, if you do get like the god, like everything like a lion. So yeah, I just wanted to real quick put this in the video because I forgot to. So yeah, like I said, because Sivally Rampardos is just the best way to counter it. You know, can definitely do good. Like I've lost, you know, like this deck can just do good in other decks, bro, because it's just a strong deck, bro, that we just haven't seen it in a while, bro, surprisingly. But yeah, it's back. Okay, yeah, so those are all the deck lists for like the top decks that I'm personally seeing in the top 1000 ranked, and I think that's all of them. I feel like I'm low-key missing one, just as an FYI, by the way. So what happened to the Decidueye? Because I've been gassing up the Decidueye for the last 2 days. So the Decidueye I thought was good because it was very good into the Buzzwole matchup. Not a lot of these other decks. Not again the Charizard, the Pheromosa version especially very bad in the Charizard. Oricorio, even with the other Decidueye, bro, I think it's still like a very hard matchup. Basically, more things came in the meta that is good against the Decidueye deck, and the Decidueye isn't good against that, so that's why I think the Decidueye has fallen off. So I'm not going to be talking about it anymore, unfortunately. I still don't think it's a bad deck. I think this, you know, there's other better decks. Yeah, so anyways, I hope you guys can take these deck lists. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the yapping. Once again, thank you guys for 900. I really do appreciate it because I woke up the day, bro, and I was like 920. I was like, what the hell just went on, dude? So I really do appreciate all the love and support. Anyways, I hope this video does help you. And peace out. Have a lovely day, and look forward to some more deck profiles showcasing these top decks actually in game.